everyone, and welcome to the second ever episode of the Modcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Modthorn, and I am, as usual, joined by our two very special friends.
Chief Mod
Hello.
Edgeworth.
And mods. Co-mod / mod, reuse / mod, Renoske. Whichever appeals to you.
I'm so glad that two of us have 1,000 names. There's Clover, Eevee Breeder, Modthorn, whatever, and then there's Ryu, Co-mod, Renoske.
Renoske the third.
Renoske the third. Lupin's a son.
And I'm probably going to change my name eventually, but so far it's been Young Bounty Girl, Young Bounty, Mod Edgeworth, and Chief Mod Edgeworth. I'll probably eventually be called Mod Kazuma.
Mod Kazuma.
That works.
Speaking of Kazuma, great segue. That's the topic. We're talking about some ancient boys today. Some very ancient, historic Shakespearean boys.
Barak Van Zeeks and Kazuma Asogi.
Yeah, two very specific prosecutorial Shakespearean boys.
Yeah. Quick question.
Originally, we were supposed to do this last week on the 1st for Aso Week, but
complications.
Someone got sick.
Complications. I got sick, is what they're talking about.
Yes. Yes. Comod got sick. I had to go to camp literally the next day. It was a thing.
And I was preparing for a stupid thing.
I kind of was like just me having to go to camp the next day, literally in the middle of Aso Week, like in the process of having to submit like how many stories? I couldn't even get to 7. I could only get to 6 because of the camp.
Oh no, you only wrote 6 fan fictions.
Yeah, only 6. I couldn't. But which is sad because the 7th is free day, which means I could make any sort of story I want, whereas the first 6 are like themed.
I never do I just submit mine on the last day every time because I don't do themes. I'm a wild card, baby.
So yeah, the first one is significant date. There probably was more than that, but that's what I put. That's what I put. The second one is flower language and communications. Day 3 was pride and selfless acts.
You know, sometimes I learn about relationship weeks, and I'm just like, man, I'm so glad I don't do those because this sounds cheesy as hell.
And the next day, day 4 is Grave, Reaper, and Soulmates. Day 5 is Scars and Passage of Time. And day 6 is AU and Commitment. And of course, because it's an AU, I chose a vampire fic.
Oh boy.
Of course. Barak is basically a vampire anyways.
He's Count Dracula reincarnated.
Yeah. James, you had a question?
Oh yeah. Well, first I wanted to say I haven't read any of those fanfics, but I like the titles. Also, does anybody actually know how you're supposed to pronounce Barak, or I know Kazuma is? I think that's how you say it, but is it Barak? Is it Barak? Is it?
I think it's.
I say Barak.
I think it's Barak. The only reason I don't call him Barak is because then I'm just gonna start calling him Brock.
All right. Okay. Well, if it's Barak, then don't fix it.
If I call, thank you.
Sorry.
Hey, let's not. I think we should just call him whatever because it feels very similar, anyways. Like Barak and Kazuma Asogi.
Yeah. That's what Asobaro means, in case anyone was wondering. Asogi Barak.
Yeah. So this week we're gonna start talking about the two dudes and separately. So
two prosecutor love boys.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Mr. Reaper Boy first, and then we're gonna talk about the other guy that I. Sorry.
Mr. Reaper.
Mr. Reaper.
There's also something. It's kind of on my mind that I want to start out before we actually start.
Yeah.
And I'm only saying this because this is something that I'm noticing within, the fandom. But there is a difference between racism and xenophobia. Racism is the
Right.
discrimination based on skin color, despite where you live, no matter if you live with them or not. Whereas xenophobia is discrimination based on the country that someone lives.
I
I
mean,
say that I say this
There's
because
some.
I don't consider Barrock to have problems with racism. I consider him to have problems with xenophobia.
I
Because then you
agree, but
have,
also, like, I think the main reason people say he's racist isn't to be correct. It's just because it's easier to just say racist than xenophobic, because xenophobic people might not know the word, whereas racist, they're like, oh, okay, so he's just a douche.
Yeah.
I get
I,
that. It's just that from what I understand and also and also what I've also seen, discriminating someone based on what country you live in versus discriminating against someone based on the color of their skin. I've noticed that those discriminations are very different with much different experiences.
Well,
You see
sure,
what
but
I
they're
mean?
also not
yeah.
mutually. I agree, but they're also not mutually exclusive. Anyways, y'all can get
Yeah.
started
There's some.
on your own. I actually have to go to the washroom, and I will jump in with my own opinions as soon as I come back. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So, with all
I
of that
was gonna say.
said,
Yeah. I was gonna say something, but I forgot. So go ahead. Uh, no,
okay,
I'm kidding.
so with all of that said,
Oh
of
yeah. Oh yeah.
all of us
But
agreeing with this and out of the way, let's start off with Barrock's character with his introduction in a title that I am never going to remember even if you say it, so I'm just going to call it the McGilden case.
yep.
Yeah, basically this
Agnes
is
McGilded.
basically the Irish midget with the top hat.
Mm-hmm. And a whole lot of money.
That's mm-hmm. What I find
And a
interesting
whole lot of
now, yeah, I find interesting.
a
I
whole
find
lot of
this a very
jerkiness.
interesting case, both because of what we're dealing with,
It
but
is.
also as an introduction to Barrock's character. Because
Uh-huh.
usually it's always because
Oh yeah.
introductions are always important for any character. And what I notice is that when most prosecutors are first introduced, like I don't know, I kind of like to go back to Spirit of Justice when you know Niyuta was first introduced. It's like the first introduction we ever got with him was just a typical, oh, he might know Apollo, he might not, but apparently he doesn't feel any different than any other jerky prosecutor of the week. With Baroque, on the
Pretty
other
much.
hand, we get something completely different. And I like that they introduce him on a case where our client is guilty as hell.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Yeah.
it's
It's
absolutely
complicated.
it's a perfect way of introducing Baroque because he doesn't feel like another, jackass prosecutor of the week. He feels like
Yeah.
someone who is a genuinely good prosecutor that is given, and even the reason for why he's feared, by the defense attorney is much different from all the other prosecutors. Let's go over
Yeah.
some of the other prosecutors. Miles Edgeworth, why is he feared? Outside
He's
of
the
being
demon
someone personal
prosecutor.
taking its rights, it's because he has had years of wins. He's always won. He's always had guilty verdicts. He's always put people behind bars. He comes off as being cold and heartless because he doesn't care about anything else as outside of wins. He doesn't even care if the guy is truly guilty or truly innocent. Just
Mm-hmm.
got the short end of the stick. Francisca von Karma, the reason she is feared is that, and also the fact that she's completely violent and out of control, much like
And
her
she's got. And
father,
she's.
except much like her father, except at least with him, it did feel like he was on. he was more calculated and control, whereas Francisca really isn't.
Yeah.
And then
and
you
also
have
he doesn't have a whip. That's a big important factor, I
well,
think.
yeah, and then you have Prosecutor Godot. Now, the reason he is feared is because he has a vendetta against Phoenix, which he doesn't
Phoenix.
know or understand the context. And something that most people fear is something that they don't know. And so it takes advantage of the idea that Phoenix doesn't know who this guy is. He doesn't know why he has a vendetta against him. And it's like, who is he? Like, he's not
the
in for
ultimate man
guilty
of mystery.
verdicts. He has nothing against guilty verdicts or anyone that Phoenix is defending. He just wants to kick Phoenix's butt and basically basically kick him to the curb. Just basically beat him up. He doesn't care about wins. He just wants to beat him up. That's basically it. Like, that's why his first introduction in the Stolen Turnabout, started with larceny before he said, "Oh, sorry, this is now a murder case."
Yeah.
Like the jackass he is. So,
he's like, now you're my best friend.
Now you're my bitch. So then afterwards, we get to Clavier. Now the reason we fear Clavier isn't because he's a terrible prosecutor or even that he has a vendetta against Apollo or any of that. It's actually the fear that he's being used, or that he might not actually know as much as he thinks he does. Like, he might be convinced that someone's guilty, but then it turns out there's more to it that he's completely oblivious about. So in Clavier's
also it's kind of intimidating that he looks exactly like our former boss who turned out to be a killer. Because he's his twin brother.
Absolutely.
But what are the odds?
I believe that's why Apollo never liked Clavier, or at the very least hated him, was because he reminded Apollo a lot about Kristoff, and Kristoff is a son of a bitch, and so having someone who is basically a reflection of him definitely gives that intimidation, in a very interesting way. And then we have the Professor Layton, which is the Inquisitors, who are feared because, unlike the modern times, how they do court cases is absolutely a mod mentality. And it's not even about if the person is a murderer or not. It's about if they're a witch or not. And they do not get 2 Fs if they kill an innocent girl who is just a scared little girl who doesn't know what to do. And the fact that
happens to be a witch.
Yeah, and the fact that Maya could have been killed had the fire been real and had the execution been real already sends chills down your spine, And then you have Prosecutor Blackquill, who is feared because he's an inmate, and he is basically one of the biggest loose cannons for a prosecutor. He's a really huge loose cannon, like he's out of control. And
I remember Athena's he's like, he broke out of his shackles.
I don't know why she would be surprised. He didn't
he did that before in Turnabout Reclaimed. Like, how does she not expect that? But it was hilarious nonetheless.
Yeah. And then you have Nuyuta, who is basically feared because, I don't know, Prosecutor of the Week, I guess.
Yeah.
But then you have Barrock.
Yeah.
The reason that Barrock is feared isn't because he wants guilty verdicts. It isn't because of ignorance. It isn't because he's a reflection of a son of a bitch. It isn't because he has a vendetta against Ryunosuke, because there's no reason
not specifically him anyway.
Of being Japanese, but that's neither here or there. The reason he's feared is because for the first time, we have a prosecutor who isn't known by wins, but by losses. He isn't feared because of the amount of guilty verdicts he gets, but by the amount of not guilty verdicts he gets. And so what happens, defendant, after he gets a not guilty verdict, they're killed.
Hello, I'm back.
Hey, did you hear all of that, or
yes,
do we need to catch you up?
No, I heard all of that, and I want to correct something. I think what you're trying to, when you say fear, I don't think that's the word you're actually trying to use, because no matter how you frame it, I will never fear Clavier or Nayuta or Gato. I think the word you're looking for...
Intimidation.
Exactly. I think the word you're looking for is they're supposed to be intimidating.
Yeah,
just the unnerving.
I just couldn't, like, really... I mean, I knew that was the word, but I couldn't remember what the word was, so I had to find some synonyms for it, you know?
That's fair. Yeah, I get it. Like, he's... To sum up what you said... Edgeworth is intimidating because he's won for 4 years. Franny's intimidating because she's the daughter of Von Karma. Gato's intimidating because he hates you and you don't know why. Clavier's intimidating because he seems empty-headed when he's not. Frickin' Inquisitors, I don't remember. Blackwell's intimidating because, hey, he's a loose cannon because he's going to die in 4 days. Nayuta's not intimidating at all because he sucks. And then Barrick is intimidating not because he's bad, but because regardless of whether you win or lose, something could potentially happen to your client.
Yeah.
Also, there's also
and during the first game, when we're first introduced to Barrick, we don't even know if he's the cause of it, because the only time that we're shown any evidence of this is from a video clip where we see Magnus McGilded being burned alive inside of the omnibus, and then you see Barrick just staring at the burning, just almost
I saw that and I was like okay, so Barrick just I saw that and immediately my brain went, okay, so Barrick just fucking killed somebody.
Yeah, you can't tell by looking at him
even if he didn't, you also... You're not seeing him like going out and trying to rescue McGilded. You're not seeing him try to put the fire out or anything. He's just watching, which gives a foreshadowing that even though he may not be controlling it, even though he may not be responsible for it, he's allowing it to happen. He's just going with it. And that already makes him a very intimidating person. Sometimes what makes someone intimidating isn't if there isn't by causing something or for instance, if someone just to give an example, like, you know, everybody doesn't like being bullied. Like, you know, you have a bully that just bullies you. But sometimes where that intimidation factor comes in isn't by the bully, you know, beating you up. It's by the fact that everyone else around you is allowing it to happen. They're just watching. They're not doing anything. Of course, we do find out later on that he actually does care.
Well, okay, so if I might interject, my thing with it isn't that he's just watching and therefore it isn't it. My thing with that is, when it comes to McGilded, 2 things come to mind when it comes to Barrick watching the execution of, like, the omnibus, I mean. One thing comes to mind is he knows that this has happened to him, 17 previous times? Therefore, it's probably going to happen, this was going to happen. And 2, I imagine, so he knows, like, even if he does save him, there's a very good chance that, no, he'll just be screwed anyways. But then there's also the chance that he's looking at this and going, well, even if I could stop this guy has done bad things, and if I let him go, he's going to do worse. So I'm just going to let him die.
Kind of. Yeah, but, you know, at this point, we don't know that. We don't even know any of the terrible things that McGilded has done. Like, that's kind of the point, is that at this point, we don't know the
Well, no, we've known by this point that he at least killed a person.
Well, yeah, that is true. Like, but I think and we do later on find out the reason why it's been this way is because, you know, he's trying to justify in his head, like, well, of course they must be guilty, right? Like, that's what he's been going through his head. Like, surely they must be guilty. And you understand.
Some of them are.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Exactly. Now, we don't know how many are or how many are innocent, but the point is that that's how he's had to justify it and why he just stands there and does nothing, because he has to justify that
in his head. Yeah. My other thing is his inaction kind of perfectly encapsulates the thing that Strongheart was doing at the very end of the second game.
Yeah.
Like, basically what Strongheart said was, hey, if the justice system is gonna fail and let these pieces of shit get free, then why shouldn't I kill them since they didn't get other justice? My idea is that Barrick...
why not?
Exactly. Barrick is kind of following that same idea in a different way, where he's going, you know, like, it's the trolley problem. He's like, I'm not touching this, therefore I am not guilty. And I'm sitting there like, well, your inaction still makes you guilty because you're not trying to save him.
Yeah, and I will definitely get into how this affects his character later on. But as an introduction, this is an absolute perfect introduction to, you know, Barrock, because it's very important that if you introduce a prosecutor, you have to make sure that they are intimidating in some way. Like, now, of course, there are exceptions, like, you know, Miles Edgeworth investigations, but obviously, you know, Miles Edgeworth is a prosecutor. So if he meets another prosecutor, it's expected that that prosecutor isn't going to be intimidating. In fact, you're likely going to find like other types of characters that work in different positions to be more intimidating, such as a judge or an investigator of Interpol, which is basically the equivalent of the FBI.
Lang has entered the building.
Yeah, so...
I'm going to be real. I don't find any of the characters that any prosecutor goes against to be interesting, because the prosecutor themselves, especially in investigations, I know that's not what we're talking about this week, but like the same thing goes for Barrick. Like, there is no character you can put up against Barrick that I will look at and be like, oh, he's intimidating. The only exception to that rule has ever been Strongheart, because even like, what's his face, Damon Gant, I look at him and I go, you're just a sociopathic grandpa, you know?
Yeah. It's just laughing off everything.
A sociopath grandpa.
I mean, am I wrong, though?
No, you're not.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, people have made comparisons to Strongheart and Damon Gant.
Oh, those two are related. Are you kidding me? I've already headcanoned that. I headcanoned that the second I beat the game.
Alike. But... okay, investigations aside, because it's another type of genre in my opinion, but that being said, I think we get the idea, like that when we introduce the prosecutor as, you know, the rival to the defense attorney, we have to make sure that they hold some sort of power, some sort of intimidation that makes them fearsome. And not just because Barrock looks like a vampire that owns 1,000 bats, which why Kazuma is able to stay in the same office as him without shitting his pants is most likely.
All that's true except for the vampire thing.
I'm gonna be real though. I think Kazuma has dealt with stupider.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of him being vampire-like, can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's been mentioned by the creators. He was based off Dracula from Castlevania.
Yeah.
And neat thing about that, if you, I don't know if you've played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, he's briefly. Dracula is one of the bosses, and in his introduction, he takes a chalice of wine and throws it against the wall and breaks it.
Of course he does.
I was like, what that?
Like, hi, Barrick, what's up? What are you doing here?
We actually get to fight Barrick in a boss fight.
Dude, I'll never get over that goddamn... I don't care what people say. I do not care what anyone says. In my headcanon, he is taking that wine bottle and flinging it into the gallery.
Yeah.
And pissing off everybody.
Yeah, but they...
Yeah, he is pissing off everybody. And I never said that he isn't throwing that against anybody. I'm just saying he wasn't. I was just saying that he wasn't throwing it against the gallery. Like, and I would find it much worse if he was throwing it against like some court officials, in my opinion,
I mean,
than if it was like.
Regardless of where he's throwing it, it's wine, and then he throws his filled up chalice into the fucking candelabra. Like, he's gonna set the courthouse on fire.
How he's
It burns.
Oh, not to
Burns. Burn it, ring of fire.
Oh, another thing, and this is something you would
Sorry, I didn't
only
mean to
learn
change
from the
subjects.
DLC case from the first game. Like, if you were, in which you can only get the DLC case of the Greatest Attorney from just the first game that's only in Japanese. Why that is,
Stupid.
I have no idea. But if you
What
were
even
to do
are-
London
so-
side, you would find out, as it turns out, Barrow doesn't drink that wine.
Yeah, which
What?
that just further pisses me off, though. Because that means
And
that
the
he-
reason, and guess what? And it's not just that, but the reason he uses wine specifically in his chalice is because there is actually a story behind it. You see, during the first years he was prosecuting, he used to drink wine from a silver chalice or a
Oh,
silver,
God.
cup like that. That was unbreakable. And one day when he was pouring his wine turned black, which, if you know the chemistry of silver,
it's
that
lead.
usually means that there's sulfur in the wine, meaning that someone tried to poison him. And so
Ooh.
because of that, he uses that wine as a way to face those that try to kill him.
Hey, man,
Basically.
how about you just stop drinking wine in court, you fucking dick?
Yeah.
He doesn't drink wine!
How about
Well, he
you
sips
stop?
it every now and then.
How about you stop bringing it to court, you cock? Like, dude, you're wasting it. My God,
He probably was
sorry, that explanation just made me so angry because, like, dude, if someone tried to kill you, maybe stop having it, but you have kegs upon kegs in your fucking office. So, like, either be traumatized and don't have it or shut the fuck up, you know?
Yeah. And one thing about the wine, it's
because he wasn't the one who had to explain it. I believe it was the judge in that DLC case, and then Rianowski literally had to investigate more on that. It was
No,
like,
I know, but
Wow.
still.
can I say something about the
Yeah, go ahead.
I think part of the wine thing is even if whether he drinks it or not, it's just kind of a sophisticated look, just taking the chalice and
Well, yeah,
swirling
but
it around.
he's such a snob.
Well, that's,
like
that's the
every-
point.
Well,
Wants to
I
look
know,
like a
but like
snob.
every other snobby prosecutor doesn't feel as snobby because they don't have wine. Like the most we get is like coffee Gatto, and that's fine because Gatto.
and originally it was supposed to be beer.
Gatto has literally nothing else going for him. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was whiskey before it was coffee.
but like
Yeah, it was whiskey.
we already had that with what's his nuts, the Southerner. I totally forgot his name. My point is that
Right.
point is that one prosecutor needed a drink, and that one prosecutor was Gatto. We don't need a wine snob, and that's just,
Well,
I don't know.
I honestly don't think a game
because the
placed in
lady-
Great Britain is complete without a wine snob. But that's just me.
If I may talk about my opinions on sorry.
Yeah.
Dev keeps making me laugh in the chat, so I have to bring this up because Dev just said, yes, throwing wine bottles into the gallery is very upper class. So I want to say something about Barrack because unlike Kazuma, well, actually, I guess the two of them had opposite effects for me. Where Barrack, I hated him from the second he talked because he said my Nipponese friend and would not stop bringing it up, and I was like, oh my God, shut the fuck up, you xenophobic asshole. Then he threw his wine, and I immediately went, what the fuck is wrong with you? Someone can find that clip and send it. You guys, I'm not kidding. You can send that because I reacted so like aggressively to that moment, and as the games went on, like the first game I couldn't stand him. The second game he was fine for the sham spear case. Then Albert showed up, and that's really where I was like, okay, maybe you're not as awful as I thought. Especially by the end of the case where he was like, I need to take you out of Britain and I need to send you back to Germany so you're safe. That was the moment
Yeah.
where I was like, okay, you're all right. I thought I hated you, but you clearly care, so I'm gonna give you another shot. And from there, I liked him. And I think that's interesting because I don't think there's ever been a prosecutor that I didn't keep my feelings for the entire way through.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you could also
the
say
same
he's
effect as I had with Sebastian the best.
yeah, he's can I just say he's not you could say he's an awful person, but not for no reason. You know, he didn't just decide I'm going to be awful because I can.
Yeah, no.
He's got history.
He started out fine, then he turned into an asshole, and then he became fine again. And then he found out he was an uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't even something that stood out to me about the first case, and this is why I want to really go into my thoughts on Barrack on the first case. Like, not only is it a good introduction, but something is that at this point when I was first playing the game, I already looked through, Ace Attorney Tumblr and everything, and I was already forewarned that he was going to be xenophobic.
Dude, I went into the game.
People were already.
I went into the game completely blind, and I was so upset.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm not finished yet. But
sorry.
Yeah. I went. So yeah, I wasn't completely blind. So yeah, when I first was introduced to Barrack, I was purposely looking for anything that would give people a reason to say this guy is racist or this guy is xenophobic, this guy is a douchebag. And from the first, and funny thing is, I didn't notice anything that was xenophobic or racist until the Natsumi case, the first Natsumi case.
What?
Yeah, and let me give you the reason why. The reason was because most of it is because when I judge someone as racist or xenophobic, I go by their actions more than their words, because their words can be easily taken out of context. And context to me matters more than anything.
I mean, I don't know about you, but if a guy...
I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished because I need to... Yeah. So, and when I was looking through the first case, some of the things that stood out to me was, okay, here is a prosecutor who completely was blindsided by the fact that Ryunosuke was going to be, defending McGilded. Okay, yes, it was in the last minute, but considering the judge knew that, to me, I'm like, why didn't Barrack know that? And then the second thing I noticed was that Barrack was giving amples of evidence. He wasn't just, saying, oh, this person is guilty without reason, look at me, ha ha ha, what evidence do you have to prove that he's innocent?
Francisca.
No, this man's guilty. Here is my evidence. Here is the omnibus. Here is this. Here is that. Here's a picture. Here is all of these things proving, to back up my claim. And
well, it helps that Gilded was actually guilty.
That this was fresh and new. He even allowed us to literally go inside the omnibus. I'm like, what prosecutor has ever been this open from their introduction? Maybe yes later on, but the introduction, they've often had to withhold evidence and everything, whereas this guy, he doesn't withhold anything at all. And
if
then
I might
find out. And then we find out later on, because I'm not done with this yet, later on that eventually, as you know, the omnibus gets, manipulated. It becomes forged. There's blood on it that wasn't there. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? And then, and Barrack does something that absolutely shocked me. Absolutely blew me away. Now, going back to Clavier, when Phoenix had presented forged evidence, Clavier had accused him of forgery, and even brought the painter out to testify that this is forged, and without any evidence or anything for Phoenix to prove otherwise, he was automatically blamed. On the other hand, Barrock puts the blame on himself. He takes the blame. He could have pointed to Ryunosuke, but he didn't. He took the blame. He said, put the blame on me. Do not put the blame on this guy. He even was asking Ryunosuke, he's like, did you not see that it was clear moments ago? And Ryunosuke's like, yeah, it was actually very clean, and now there's blood on the floor for some reason. Like, I don't know where that came from. And there's already something conflicting within Barrock. Like, oh, this guy is confused. He looks like a new defense attorney, completely deer in headlights. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't even know how bad his client is. And you have the choice either to say, I don't know if this guy is guilty, or say, no, I believe he is innocent without reason. And either way, no matter what you choose, Magnus McGildy gets away with his shit until he's burned inside the omnibus. But during that time, Barrock is the one who takes the blame. He is punished for what happened to the omnibus. He gets punished. Not Ryunosuke, but Barrock. And this punishment continues until the end of the game, when Gina is cross-examined and testifies that she had lied and that she was responsible for manipulating the piece of evidence, which results in, Ryunosuke being temporarily disbarred for the bit. But until that happens, Barrock is the one who takes all of the blame. And that stood out to me just from the first game. Now, of course, in the second one with Natsume, then that's when his, xenophobia stood out, the brightest, because, he was doing all, because he was like, there are two things I hate. I hate rich guys like McGilden, and I hate people that are from Japan. And I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see it. But during the first
say that
game,
out loud, why don't you?
Yeah, but during the first case with McGilden, I didn't see as much of it. What I saw mostly was just him doing his job and him trying to convict a guy who was obviously guilty as hell, and not being able to do it, the jury not knowing what to do about it, and then the judge being like, okay, this guy's innocent. And then it's like, Ryunosuke feels like it's a loss. And then, meanwhile, Barrock is the one being taken the blame for everything that happened, even though deep down inside, he knows that Ryunosuke should be the one to take the blame. And to me, that's probably the best way to introduce Barrock, if you're going to make him xenophobic. Because one of the biggest things I hate when people make racist or xenophobic characters is making them the straw man. And Barrock Van Zieks is nothing like a straw man. He's not your typical straw man, racist, xenophobic character. He's someone who feels human. He has been hurt. He has emotions. He has feelings. There is more dimension to him than just, oh, he's xenophobic. There's more to him than that.
Cass, I actually, I remember the thing I forgot a long time ago and said, go ahead. That's, he is xenophobic, but not just because he can be and because he sees the Japanese and thinks they're less than him. He was double-crossed by a Japanese person, and that's not exactly a good conclusion to jump to, that they're all like that, but he's had some personal experience that shaped his view of them, and that doesn't justify him thinking that way.
But
I'm just saying there's more to it than just him looking down on it. So I'm done. I think we're both done.
Sorry, I'm just waiting for everyone to finish so I can get my 2 cents.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Hang on.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I think there was a miscommunication. What you're basically saying is, despite Barrick being xenophobic, he took the blame for what happened in the McGilded case, which speaks about how he's two-dimensional. Because someone in the chat was confused and said that Barrick was being punished for being xenophobic, which is not what you were saying at all.
No.
Okay. So...
Well, that isn't... He wasn't being punished for being xenophobic.
No. I already corrected it.
Okay, yeah.
My thing is with the first case and with him is I am the opposite. I don't know. Actions to me are obvious. Like, I roll my eyes at them because I'm like, dude, nobody is surprised by the fact that you're being a racist cock, okay? Like, shut up. It's words that I notice more than anything. So every single time he said my Nipponese friend or whatever about Nippon, I was like, hey man, like, you literally have not referred to anybody of any other ethnicity by anything except for me, and that's real fucking sketchy, dude.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why I think he takes the blame is not because deep down he knows Ryunosuke, because it's not Ryunosuke's fault. How the fuck was he supposed to know that was going to happen? He takes the blame probably because he knows that McGilded is guilty and didn't take the precautions to prevent McGilded from doing assholey things.
Yeah, so I
wasn't saying that.
I think
it's because he cares about Ryunosuke. I wasn't saying that. I was just saying
I know, but I'm thinking...
I think he's more than that.
Well, no, but I know that. But I think, like, the way I see it is he's doing it logically. Like, A, there's no way to get Ryunosuke to take the blame. B, there was ways that he could have prevented it. And C, really, like, there was no way that he was going to be able to do this without, like, basically just restraining him and making it a closed-door trial. So I think that's why he took it. And honestly, like, that is, like, the third thing also, that is not the worst thing that anyone has ever accused him of. Not by a long shot.
I disagree with that because look back at what Clavier did to Phoenix. Granted, there was no jury, but there was a freaking gallery. And because of what he did, he ruined Phoenix's rights reputation. He got him disbarred. He ruined his life.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Those
that's
two
the thing.
Yes. But those
that's the thing. That's the thing with Ryunosuke. He could have done the same thing, if not worse, because Ryunosuke is a foreigner. Like, nobody knows him. He is so easily thrown under the bus. And the first game continually proves how easy it is to do it, even because the person is a Japanese foreigner, which, going to the Natsume case, first and second on, what they have to go through. Like, it's hard for them to find a place to live and all of that.
So I wasn't finished.
Okay.
Huh?
You wildly interrupted, and I was going to say that I understand what you're saying, but those two conversations are very mutually exclusive, given that everyone was manipulated in that scenario, including Clavier, and nobody was really manipulated in the other scenario except for Gina, because everyone had the rug pulled out from under them by what's-his-nuts. There's no reason for... There's no reason...
And Barrock. Barrock was also manipulated, too.
That is what I am saying. I'm sorry. I don't mean to get frustrated. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm saying that literally everybody was manipulated by McGilded. And that is a completely different scenario from the Kristoff thing, where really only Clavier was told, hey, this is a bad thing. That is a totally different scenario. Clavier was basically instructed to throw him under the bus, where Barrick just had the option and chose not to. You cannot compare those two scenarios because no one cares who Ryunosuke is, as you said, and everyone cares who Phoenix is. Everyone knows that Clavier's new, and so it's weird that people were taking his side, whereas Barrick had a lot of people who knew who he was and could have done it. And there were just so many elements that I don't think that you can compare the two fairly. That's like saying that, like, like that's the same thing as comparing the two Von Karmas. They are of different generations and of different stories. It is impossible to get it is impossible to compare the two, and I don't want to put Franziska next to Manfred and say this is the same thing, because they're not. One of them is cool and the other one is Franziska.
Yeah, I see what you're meaning. I was just saying that, that if that Barrock could have done that, yes, Barrock's manipulate, and I was actually thinking that Strongheart had manipulated Barrock, not McGill did, but that's beside the point. What I was saying, the reason I was comparing the two was to demonstrate how easy it would have been for Barrock to do it. So if he hates the Japanese, and assuming that, it's for the reasons that we are eventually told later on down the road, why would he still do it? And sure, maybe it is because of reputation. Maybe it's something that should be up for interpretation. I don't know. Yeah. But I do think it is something that gives him more dimension that's outside of the fact that he's xenophobic. It has nothing to do with his xenophobia. It has nothing to do with what he does in the Natsume case. It's mostly just demonstrating who he is as a character and his personality, because it's absolutely important that, okay, if he's xenophobic, what else is he? Is he someone, like, for instance, what are his talents? What is his personality? Is he always a jerk, or are there times when he's willing to help those that are in need? If there was someone who was out on the street who was homeless, would he be the kind to just leave them out on the street, or would he be willing to, take them under his wing and perhaps even give, or maybe even share offices with him?
Sorry. I'm gonna stop you right there, because I know you're talking about Kazuma, but the implication you're saying is he would just take a random homeless person and bring him inside. And as a person who currently lives in a city that is half populated by homeless people, I automatically know it doesn't matter what your personality is. You don't let that happen.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point. Is that most people that create these kind of characters, they never develop characters like that. They always make them as like, oh, this is a straw man, racist, xenophobic character. There's nothing else to them other than they're racist or xenophobic. There's no character development to them. There's no personality. There's nothing other than
yes, James?
Sorry. This kind of makes me think of is just a little bit off topic, but Beauty and the Beast. When Belle meets the Beast, he looks like, well, a beast, but she waits and sees. Yeah, she waits and sees, is he just a monster, or does he have? There's something in him besides.
That wasn't there before. That's what it is.
Yeah, basically that you spoke.
I agree.
That you first meet him, find it.
Just being a beast.
If I may compare Barrack to a different character that I would classify as asshole, I hate to bring her up because I know you hate this series, Ryu, but Tenko Chabashira from the third Danganronpa game.
Okay, but I haven't even played that game, so that's fine.
Oh, don't worry, you're not missing out on anything.
I know. I've been told.
Tenko is a sexist little piece of shit, literally hates every single guy for no fucking reason, and she doesn't get any character development unless you spend your time with her, which sucks, because, oh my god, I hate her, and I don't want to waste my time with her. So, the thing I like about Barrack is because there are no friendship events where you can choose to spend time with him, you are forced to see his character because it goes along with the story. And I think that benefits him as a character. That is why I started to like him and why I can't.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one of the downsides to Danganronpa is that you literally have to spend time with each character in order to get to know him or get to know them or have any character development. Whereas Ace Attorney doesn't really have that, and I'm glad it doesn't.
You don't always like the push-up shit with Maki. Like Maki had a lot of character development, and I know Frick, what's his name? Fuyuhiko. Like, there aren't, like, moments. It's just there are some characters where, yeah, you are kind of locked into seeing them through that. And I like that Ace Attorney doesn't do that. The only problem with that is Ace Attorney has a lot of characters that you're supposed to get attached to that I genuinely can't remember anymore.
And I think, like that, another thing that Ace Attorney seems to have an issue with is that, okay, let me introduce you to a character and we know nothing about them until the very end. Like even Edgeworth, we almost knew nothing about him until, Turnabout Goodbyes, which is okay for a first game, but it's like, I think that Ace Attorney, I think that sometimes you just need to slowly develop the characters throughout each of the chapters, and unfortunately, Ace Attorney doesn't really do that. Now, thankfully, Barrock isn't just there for one whole game, and I think this is not like an improvement, but it's a start where you're given more time to get to know him than any other prosecutor. Like most of the prosecutors, you get to know them for like, one whole game and then that's it. Like maybe you get some cameos, maybe in future games, but for the most part, unless it's Miles Edgeworth that gets his own spin-off games, more times than not, they hardly get any character development, and then after the first game, it's okay, they barely arrive at all, except maybe in cameos and such.
I was gonna say, what the hell are you talking about cameos? The only character who ever cameoed other than Edgeworth was Franny, and nobody enjoyed that except for the fetish people.
Let me give you some examples. Okay,
like I know which cameos you're talking about. I've played all the games. It's just that the only character I would consider to have cameos are Franny and Clavier because the only other one who really had quote unquote cameos is Edgeworth, and he had an important role to play in all of his cameos. So like,
yeah, that is true. Which is why I said that unless it's like someone like Miles Edgeworth, who not only has his own spin-off games, but he actually did play an important role. He was literally the prosecutor at the end of the second game. He played a major role at the end of the third game, yada, yada, yada. But outside of him, almost every single prosecutor, it's like outside of maybe showing up, hey,
here's this guy. Anyways, moving on. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, like something like that. Like, okay, Clavier appears in this for a mock trial. Okay, moving on.
Man, you have no idea how upset I am.
During this case, he's a witness and he helps Athena. Okay, moving on. Has nothing to do with the story.
Man, I will never forgive Capcom for shafting Clavier as hard as they did, because they immediately brought back Edgeworth and I wanted to punch them all in the fucking groin.
I will say that Francisca at least has a more active role, at least in the second second investigation game mostly.
But she sucks!
Other than that, it's nothing to really write home about.
Dude,
she's slightly less of a jerk. That's it.
I want to roast
games than any other Ace Attorney combined.
Dude, I want to roast the hell out of Franny. Every time we bring her up, I want to roast the shit out of her. And I'm waiting.
How about we have her own thing?
I don't know if I want to have her have her own episode, just because there's maybe, but there's not a lot to her. I just want a chance to rip her a new one, you know? But that's not what this episode.
Just do that on your own, maybe.
How about this? First play the second investigation games, and then we can plan an episode of roasting her.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of depth in that game.
Find me
because she's a player in the second investigation game.
Find me a streamable emulator and I will absolutely play it, but I have no other way to do it otherwise.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a couple things I need to say. First, I forgot already. How long do we usually do the Modcast? 2 hours. Okay. Just make sure we have time for
it hasn't been 2 hours because I can see the time thing on my phone.
Yeah, it's only been about just under an hour.
Something I've been wanting to say about Barrack, if I can, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one thing I love about Ace Attorney and a lot of other games with good stories is how tragedy happens, stuff that looks like it's not supposed to happen. Nothing good came out of it, but then good and great things come out of it. Like right at the beginning, Phoenix is accused of stealing lunch money, and everyone thinks he did it. So, but he makes it, not only is defended, but gets a new friend because of it, and a very close friend. Barak being a xenophobe and just somebody that you wouldn't want to be around, especially if you're Japanese. That makes it, that on its own is not good, but that makes it that much more beautiful when he not only gets to meet more Japanese people and see their good side, see that they're not all like the one that he had a grudge against, but he,
no, it's fine.
He had to be defended by one, and was defended by one, and the one that he was one of the biggest jerks to, and now he literally owes his life to him.
Here's my thing with Barak's xenophobia. I have met many a xenophobic person, and I have met many an asshole of different races. None of any of those races have ever done, like, even if they had, like, murdered my brother, even then, I'd just be like, well, that guy was just a psychopath, He's not every one of them. And he's in his 30s, right? Like, I feel like that's the kind of common sense you should have. But then again, I know people in their 40s who have that kind of xenophobia, so I guess I actually don't have a point here.
Yeah. I was going to say something to that real quick.
Can I finish real quick? Sure.
I'm just going to say, I totally agree. You should not judge people, even if judge a country, a whole country by what one psychopath from that country does. Mm-hmm. But I just think that'd be easy for me to say. If you kill somebody I love, I'm not going to judge you. But that hasn't happened. So when it does happen, you don't think as clearly.
I mean, cancer killed my mom, but I'm not mad at every cancer survivor.
Those
are two very. I know that those are two very different things. I was just trying to make a dark joke, and I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I'm just saying. We don't know what we would do in Barak's situation. Is all I'm saying. Go ahead.
But what I wanted to say is that I believe that with Barak, he had more time, for as a character to have. He had more time spent on him than most of the prosecutors. The first game, there was no character development for him, and that's because it didn't need to be at this time. At this point in time, we were only given that one game to really get to know him, to know what kind of a prosecutor he is, to get to know what kind of a character he is. In the Natsume case, and I'm going to include the second one on this one because I believe both kind of contribute to the same thing before we get to Gina's case. But both of those demonstrate the worst of Barak. And I know that you said that you absolutely hated Barak because of his flaws, but I consider his flaws a part of his character. And just because you have a lot of flaws in a character, especially if they're supposed to be hated, that doesn't make them bad characters.
Yeah.
Well, of course. Sure. I actually hate a character more when they don't have flaws.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also,
I'm gonna be real. I have met people who make perfect Mary Sue characters, and I'm just like, go actually fuck yourself. No, I don't say that. I don't say that. But whenever someone actually gives me a thing, I get so mad. Even if I don't even care if the flaw does not get involved in the story. As long as your character has flaws, that's fine. Just don't make your character literally perfect.
Yeah, and
it's unrelatable.
Experience that it doesn't do well when you make a character too perfect. Admittedly, I used to. I had I had a self-inserted character that was a Mary Sue, and at the time I didn't realize that. And I realized looking back that was kind of my way of coping, because at the time Hurricane Katrina had struck.
Oh, well,
and my
if it's a coping
dad
mechanism,
was in New Orleans at the time. He was a nurse working for Auctioner. And I lost all contact with him for God knows how long. I think it was like maybe a few days. And even then, it was at least 3 days. I couldn't contact him. And the only way I knew what was going on with him was literally through the news. And through the news, I saw, Auctioner Hospital. And I saw that it didn't completely flood. And to me, like, that was the only thing I knew, was that, okay, he's all right, because the auctioner hospital where he works at did not flood. And looking back now, like, making that Mary Sue character was a coping mechanism. Luckily, I did delete those stories.
Well, no. Okay. First of all, if it's a coping mechanism, that's a totally different thing. But second of all, if I may explain my own grievances with Mary Sue's before we move on to Cosima, because we have less than an hour left, and I apologize.
Oh my goodness.
If I may speak about my experiences with Mary Sue's, because I don't recall ever writing them. If I did, I don't remember them because I blocked them out of my memory. The most if I wrote a Mary Sue, it was back when I was in like the 5th grade, and I wrote a character for a podcast that I really liked. And her only because she was a cat, her only weakness was like being splashed with water. Because, I was original like that. But when I was starting out role playing, there was this one person, and he was nice, but he didn't want me to kill his character. And instead of messaging me that, he basically just gave his character whatever abilities he wanted to make sure I couldn't do it. Like, at first he did this, like, weird possum thing, right? Then his character, I guess, like, found out psychically that I wanted to kill him. And then the third one, like, he's like, oh, now he's an angel. And I'm like, all right, that's enough out of you. I've had
that in roleplay before. Those are always annoying. It's not the most annoying thing, but they are very close.
Oh, yeah. Like,
I think it's called god modding, when you just change.
Modding.
And it's
there are, I believe, 3 forms of god modding. 1 is default, making your character extremely OP. 2 is changing your character mid-story to make them unbeatable. And 3 is controlling someone else's character, which I've done exactly once, and I feel really bad about it. Even though I was 12 and I didn't even know that was a rule.
That's the only way I know the word, is I remember that.
Shout out to Lupin Mod.
Anyway.
Sorry, I'm drinking water.
But anyways,
my thing is, like, it's time to talk about the boy. And
yeah,
we haven't even gotten to the second game.
Well, yeah, but I think that's more where we learn about his relationship with Cosima. And I want to talk about Cosima very quickly because
I also want to go into the Gina case, because I think that was kind of like the bookend to his character. Not character development.
Is that the Egbert Benedict case?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And this
that's
kind of like,
literally, I'm not even kidding, that's the only thing I remember, because the second I read Egbert Benedict, I walked out of the room. I was like, this is the pinnacle of stupid puns, I'm leaving.
I don't remember much of him, honestly, even though I remember more of those Cockney,
the Mario Brothers?
Yeah, pretty much. Which I thought they were
hilarious. Partners in crime.
Yeah, but anyways, as a book into his character, like, Barrow, once again, he shows that he believes in, he thought, like, even though, like, at the time, we don't know if he truly believed that Gina was a criminal or not. It's very possible he truly believed it, and it really demonstrates how easy it is to label someone the worst of them when, they come from the street and stuff. But we also see that he's the kind of person that, when we see Gregson, trying to conceal some government secrets and stuff, like, Barok absolutely teams up with Ryunosuke to reveal what the government's secrets are, which I thought was so funny.
Let's overthrow the government!
Make it stop!
Oh, man.
He just basically throws his foot out. And then we get to the end where he has a private conversation with Ryunosuke. And he basically asks, Ryunosuke some questions, saying that he was impressed by, Ryunosuke being willing to make the sacrifice of possibly losing his job and revealing the government secrets. And he asks for his opinion, about everything. And he says, and Ryunosuke's like, well, I don't believe that that we should judge someone based on, like, who they are, where they live, and so on. And then Barok's like, I see. And then he says that the reason he has been continually, prosecuting every single one of Ryunosuke's case was because he wanted to test him. He wanted to cross swords with him because he wanted to know for sure if this is a man he could trust in court. And he ends this with saying that that Ryunosuke reminds him of a Japanese friend he once made long ago, which sets the tone of Genshin and how much his betrayal really hurt Barok without giving too much away.
Yeah.
Which, sets up for the events of the second game. Now, and if you have anything else, and if you have nothing else to say, we can finally go to Cosmo.
I don't. I have nothing to say about him that you haven't already said. My biggest thing with Kazuma, you know how I said progressively my opinion of Barok changed upward? The opposite ended up happening with Kazuma.
Yeah.
I love I love DA Kazuma because he's a dick, but he's a dick who's like, just doing his job and he's having fun with it. It also helps that his theme is just at its peak when he's there, Like, exactly. Sorry, I just love that theme.
And I think most of the reason is because of because of when he prosecutes in the last case. Because much like how, the worst of Barok was from the two Natsume case, the worst of Kazuma was from, the Barok case, and which, exceeds 2 whole chapters. And I think what really saves it for me is the epilogue, because then we're reminded that part of Kazuma, that worst of Kazuma that we saw, was just one part of his character, much like how the xenophobia with Barok is just one part of his character. And and if you only focus on that part of the character, then you're not taking in everything else as a whole. And with Kazuma, I love that his introduction. I think the only thing I didn't like about how Kazuma's character was handled is that, unlike Barok, who was given maybe 2 games where we got to know him, Kazuma was only given 3.5 games, and that's it.
Sorry, 3.5
episodes.
You mean 3.5 cases?
Yeah, see,
cases.
Yeah, 3.5 cases. The tutorial. And I say half because I'm also talking about the escapades.
Oh, yeah.
So, we get, the tutorial case, we get the 2 escapades. One of them is in his point of view. And then we get him as the master apprentice, and then we get him at the end, which shows the very end of it, and the epilogue, which is, so long. Oh, my goodness. The epilogue is literally, 1 episode long.
Dude, the epilogue, so I was just like, oh my god, just fucking end already.
Maybe that's why you completely forgot, because I remember when you were watching that at the end, you're like, you know what, Kazuma isn't so bad.
Did I really say that? I don't remember that. I know that that VOD is on my VOD channel. I might actually have to go back and rewatch that because I don't remember saying that.
Yes! Because I remember you said, because I have long-term memory, and that always...
I don't, like... I remember that
I think you were so tired that everything you saw from that epilogue just completely left you.
Probably. My thing with Kazuma was he was awesome as a DA, and then I found out that he's just doing revenge, and I was like, okay, and then I found out, like, he wants revenge on Barrack because he blames Barrack, and I'm like, okay, and then he finds out what actually happened with Strongheart, and he just kind of gives up because Strongheart says, I told you so, and I'm like, okay, dude, whatever, man. You got some beef to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll get to that later, but I want to start out with his introduction because I think it's important to also talk about that with the context in mind of what happened in the second game. That being that at this point, he already agreed to an assassination and all of that good stuff. Now, one of the things that always questioned me, and you can disagree with me if you want, I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but was he really, at this point, did he really know Barrack? Was he really going after Barrack for revenge? Or at this point, was he going after Gregson?
Yeah.
I mean,
because
both is good.
Yeah.
Whoever.
He's going after the organization.
It was just something that kept bothering me. Like, because, okay, at this point, the only information he knows is based off of the letter he got, which... probably was Barrack, getting drunk one day and sending out his grievance letter, I guess.
Fucking what?
Remember, Kazuma found out, the truth about his father being convicted as a serial killer because he got a letter from someone from England, showing him proof and newspaper clippings of everything about the professor and everything he did.
Well, sure, but that was actually... I don't think that was him being drunk. I think that was him basically saying, hey, your dad is dead. This is why. Fuck you.
Yeah, I don't... that's why... I was actually just... How do you say it? I wasn't really meaning it, but I was kind of like...
sarcastic, basically, I know.
Yes. But anyways, moving on, okay, so Kazuma's information about what's going on with his father and his father's innocence and who is responsible for framing him for being the professor and all that malarkey. The only information he's getting at this point is from that letter. Where does it say in this letter that Barrack was the prosecutor? I mean, it's possible that Jigoku could have told him, but why would Jigoku even give out that much information when Strongheart is depending on Barrack as the Reaper to basically be his scapegoat?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So, I believe that at this point, he wasn't going after Barrack. He was going after Gregson.
And he did eventually find Gregson and target him, so that's...
Yeah, and he almost killed the guy.
Yeah.
He never did that to Barrack, and in fact, he stayed with Barrack under his tutelage for 9 days after getting his memories back.
Your words mean more to me.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but if I hated someone so bad and wanted revenge on him, I wouldn't stay in the same room with him, let alone in his offices for 9 days. Just saying.
Your words mean more to me than you could know. I will hold them dear. I'll never get over that fucking line.
Who said that?
Barrack at Kazuma.
Huh.
It was the line that when I read it, I was like, okay, I kind of see why you ship them now. That line came out and I was like, okay, you two are just gay at this point, right?
Yeah, they have always been gay. Don't you know that?
I mean, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be your thing, but I was kind of saying that, kind of like how you consider Barrack and Hairbrain to being married,
Whoa, back up there, Chief. I didn't say that.
You did say that at one point.
Did I? Because I don't think I ever said they were married. I just said they were fucking. I'm pretty sure gay marriage is illegal in that time.
Oh, yeah.
I actually completely forgot about that because I don't pay attention to that stuff when I write my fan fictions.
Oh, I do extensive research, and I literally looked it up. I was like, when was gay marriage legalized in
I do research
London?
too. I'm just saying that I don't like put that on the like, because I consider writing, yaoi or yuri to being like, okay, it's exclusively fiction. If you want to put more historical context, that's great. But
Yeah,
I just want to see, I just want to see these two fucking, or at least being soft.
Something I would not openly admit, but okay. I think I get what you're saying.
I mean, I don't want to watch them do it, but
yeah.
But you get, they're not literally doing it because I
know what you mean. Like you don't want there to be restrictions. You just want them to be happy. I get you.
You're making basically an AU where those restrictions aren't there.
Yes.
I love those restrictions though. I think that makes the best relationships because they want to do it anyways. Like they know it's bad, but they'll do it because like they know it's bad, but they'll do it because they want to. That's my shit.
Yeah, but I see plenty of those in Barrow Asso's stories, so
that's true.
I kind of want a little.
That.
But anyways, continuing on, we can have the shit to be an old day.
I got so derailed.
Yeah, I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Kazuma. But yeah, no, like
Kazuma.
Like, I know that you really love Kazuma, but every time you said something like, did you do this thing with Kazuma? I was like, no, I'm not that interested in him threatening violence for the same reason I don't like it for, like, Francisca. Doubly so, in fact, because if he, like, how do I put this? Threatening violence is one thing when you're an asshole and you're daughter of an even bigger asshole, but nobody really knows who Kazuma is, so one threat of violence against a DA who everybody knows and likes, I feel like that would be enough for the judge to be like, oh, cool, so get out.
Yeah.
I think my thing is that it kind of hits a little bit differently for me. It's kind of like, because I really love Kazuma and, like, that, I'm so in love with him that I wouldn't mind him like being rough with me or being violent to me in a figurative way. You know what I?
Well, that's
I don't know how else to explain it. It's different if it's someone I'm not attracted to or that I'm not interested in, or I'm not interested in, like Francisca. It's another if it's a hot guy.
Dev just said, I remember how horny YBG was during the stream. I do too, dude.
I do too. We all do.
I try not to be horny, okay? I don't remember.
Okay.
I know I have been in the past. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I've never been. I'm just saying that normally I try to distance those feelings from my actually playing the game.
Okay.
I just remembered.
I got a little bit out of hand. I will admit that.
Yeah. I just remembered. She said something that sounded dirty to me. I said TMI.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, I can't believe you were the one who went with that joke.
Yeah,
you of all people. Anyway, I'm done reminiscing.
Yeah, I have autism, so I have no filter. I'm sorry.
I mean, I have autism, and I have a filter.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure I don't have autism, so I have no excuse.
I have Asperger's. Well, you don't have an excuse, but you also do have a filter, because I have never once heard you talk like that.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to. I was just... my mind went somewhere unexpected, I guess you could say. It does that sometimes. I don't know. What were we talking about again?
We were talking about Kazuma, but I was talking about how I think that Kazuma at first went after Gregson at this point. There's a lot about the first case that we're given subtle hints about, and we don't really completely understand it until the end of the second game, which I kind of felt, which I have to compare to my feelings towards Miles Edgeworth in the first game, except it was from the first time we meet Edgeworth, and then till the end, and then replaying the first game. In this case, it's more like, okay, I've played the first game with Kazuma. I've seen all the, escapades, and I played the second game, and now I'm replaying the first game again, and everything just starts connecting. And I began thinking, wait a second, like, how much did Kazuma know about, if Kazuma did sign an assassination contract or agreement alongside Giselle Brett. How much did he know about that situation? How much did he know that that maybe it wasn't her specifically, but at the very least, that John Wilson, the red herring, #red herring, was assassinated.
I mean, like, I'm sure he probably knew the bare minimum.
Yeah. And that always stood out to me when I was playing the second game, was that, okay, maybe he did, because a lot of people at this point were kind of questioning, like, did Kazuma manipulate Ryunosuke, which it's very possible he did, especially since at the end of the second game, he said that, he knew that even though he wasn't planning on killing Gregson, he knew at some point that there was a chance he might end up being in court for his murder, and that there was only one person he could trust to defend him. That much. So I did know that at the very least he was dragging him to London to kind of like, if he didn't kill Gregson got killed anyways, and he was framed for it, that he could have Ryunosuke defend his ass, yada yada yada. But at the same time, I also look back to, like, okay, but this is also the same guy who absolutely knew that John Wilson was assassinated. That likely by the moment that he likely saw the guy coming in with some foreign exchange student, he's like, okay, I'm leaving because I know exactly what's going to happen. This is the same guy who was willing to defend Ryunosuke and put any chance that he had to go to London and prove his father's innocence on the line. Like, putting that on the line, putting that at stake. He was willing to give that up for the sake of his friend, which tells us that there is much more dimension to his relationship with Ryunosuke than just simply, like, did he manipulate him? Because, yeah, like, friends sometimes manipulate each other. I hate to break it to a lot of people, but sometimes your closest friends will manipulate you. Like that.
Well, that's
sometimes.
That is throwing around a word.
But
I don't think I've ever had a friend that was truly my friend that outright tried to manipulate me. I do think they tried to get me to do things I didn't want to do, but I don't think they did it for a negative reason.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that, Kazuma was pushing, Ryunosuke to do something he probably didn't want to do, didn't give him a full reason. However, that being said, he did tell Ryunosuke before, Miss Nicolina basically, like, threw her cat at him. He was about to tell Ryunosuke the truth. He was about to tell him, hey, yeah, I agreed to this assassination and everything. He was about to tell him, and then Nicolina pretty much threw the cat at him.
Sorry. There's something really funny about that imagery of Nicolina just throwing a fucking cat at a person.
Yeah. I've always felt that when that happened, that I think that really changed Kazuma as a
What, being attacked by a cat? Yeah, it made him lose his memory.
Well, it isn't just that. Like, yeah, that happened, but I believe that really, even after he got his memories back, I think that really changed his perspective of what he was doing. Because, like, before, he was being reckless. He was like, say no more. I'm going to go to London, prove my father's innocence, and get revenge on the bastard that framed him in the first place, yada, yada, yada. But after doing that, I think he began maybe realizing that his life, he wasn't as indestructible as he might have once thought. A teenage girl had almost killed him. And even though she didn't, she did like break his neck. Like, you literally see a picture. Well, I mean, at least fractured it, because you do see bandages wrapped around his neck. So at the very least, it was fractured.
Yeah. There's something I need to say when you get a moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
About Kazuma's what looked to be his death. Before the Chronicles games I got a confession to make. Before the Chronicles games came out, I watched a fan translation made by a group called Scarlet Study. Yeah. They made a rough translate, well, a pretty good translation into English with subtitles and YouTube videos. After I played the first game and not the second, because they hadn't made translation for that yet, I thought Kazuma actually died. I thought that was the end of him. So when I answered as him on Escape's Eternity, at least one time I pretended he was answering from the afterlife. And then I saw the second game, I was like, oh crap!
Am I back?
Oh hello? Crap! I think that letter's still there somewhere.
We did. I did announce to everybody that we were going to put on a hold on all of the asks to Kazuma.
Check 1 2. Hello?
Oh, you okay?
Hello?
Sorry, my mic got disconnected. I had to reconnect it.
Yeah, we did put a pause on all of the letters to Kazuma and Strongheart until I finished.
We all played the game. Yeah.
Yeah, until we all played the game fully, and then because I realized that Komod, when he answered letters as Kazuma, he basically didn't take any of the flaws that we saw in the second game into consideration.
Okay, so I didn't know about him.
About the whole thing of thinking Kazuma was dead, I was the exact same, and that is one thing. This is semi about his character and semi about his writing. When he came back from the dead, I was way more into it than I was for Edgeworth, because even as a kid I was like, well, you're just an asshole, Edgeworth, fuck you. But with Kazuma, when he came back, I was like, okay, so he genuinely didn't know who he was. He straight up just had to be a different person, and he didn't mean to hurt the people that he hurt when he died. I was into him, I was into the idea.
It's kind of like he's a ghost now.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I kind of like that too, and I think people were more excited about that than with Edgeworth, because I think Justice for All kind of handled that whole Edgeworth died thing very
badly.
Yeah, because initially I didn't see anything wrong with it, but that was because when I played Justice for All, I basically, because when I purchased the game, I purchased it on the iOS, and I purchased the full trilogy. So it was okay, I already know you're still alive. I already know that you're going to come back. You're going to return in the third game, and we're all going to, and it's you're going to end up being okay. And not to mention, I also played, what was that called? Rise from the Ashes. And so
Rise from the Ashes.
I already knew he wasn't really dead. I was like, okay, I know you're not really dead. Let's just get over it.
Yes, it's a little different after all the games have been released.
I also knew that Kazuma wasn't really dead because I knew what was going to happen to him. I knew he was going to become a prosecutor, and it's kind of like that moment where when I first was introduced to him, I was like, oh my God, he's hot. I really love him. And then when I realized he was going to become a prosecutor, I'm like, I just loved you even more. Can we get married?
Sorry, are we talking about Cosima or Edgeworth? Because Royally, I zoned out and you could be talking about either one. Gotcha.
Cosima.
Sorry, I completely zoned out.
Can I say one thing about him becoming the Master Apprentice?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I found most interesting, we have a prosecutor who we've learned some things about it, but he's still a big mystery, Brock Van Zieks. And then now we have this mysterious guy. We know who he is, but he's all mysterious to everybody else, and he doesn't even talk. So I see it like they're a perfect match. It's like Van Zieks and Van Zieks Jr.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they did plan on having a Master Apprentice from the first game, but it was kind of scrapped, and then they decided to have Cosima be the Master Apprentice. Now,
yeah, I remember that.
I want to say, that when they did Cosima as the Master Apprentice with amnesia, and the more I began thinking about it, the more I began realizing that maybe you had a point, Clover, but I think you had a point when you told me that it would have been better if he didn't have amnesia at all. Because when I was thinking of a live-action version of this, I'm like, no, the live-action version would be much better if Cosima didn't have amnesia at all. And then I began thinking, oh, maybe it would have been better if he didn't have amnesia. That being said, I don't think that him having amnesia is unfixable.
Again, I don't remember.
I do think
this.
I think it was convoluted. I do think it was rushed. I do think it was clumsy. I do think it was all of these things. But I don't believe it's unfixable. Like, there is a better way to do it.
My thing is, I don't remember saying this because I think the last time I played that was last year in, like, July, and there was such a bad heat wave that I can't guarantee I didn't die, and I'm currently in a purgatory. So I don't remember saying that, but
sorry.
It's like I do think I said that because I don't think I hated it specifically for Cosima. I just hate amnesia in anything in general.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But one thing I thought was
I also want to say, can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
I do have a story where, an original story, where one of the main characters has amnesia, but he never gets his memories back, and how it's done is actually based off of one of my supervisors who is an amnestic, and how she described her experience as an amnestic. And this guy, like, he didn't just lose his memories. Like, he literally lost his ability to walk, he lost his ability to eat, he lost his ability to talk. And so, by the time we're introduced to him, he literally acts and looks like a very disabled man.
If he's lost the ability to eat, how does he survive?
He had to relearn to eat.
Oh, okay,
that's the thing. Like,
okay.
Yeah, so, like, he had to relearn, he had to be like, and not to mention, because he's a vampire in that story, it's like he literally had to be spoon-fed blood.
So, I also have an amnesiac character. It's not original, it's for a Maple story I'm writing, but basically, the reason she's an amnesiac is because her memories were literally ripped out of her head, and her brother sort of remembers them, like some of them that are still there, but all of hers have been removed completely. There's no bringing them back. So it's less amnesia because she forgot, and more that they literally just ripped it out and she can't remember. And the whole thing is her just moving on and making new memories where her brother wants to remember the few that he still has. Like, there are ways to make amnesia good and unique and, like, fun, and they didn't do that with Cosima. With Cosima, it was just like, what happened to Cosima? It's like he got hit in the head with a cat, and now he can't remember shit.
Something I gotta say real quick.
On the cat, and his head fell hit against the bedpost, but
what I thought was, I don't know if this is a complaint, but it's just, I thought it was weird. I was kind of expecting, like, his memory would come back way later in the game, and he'd just be the master apprentice for most of the game. And then in it was the third case, he's just, he sees a statue of Genshin, and he's just, oh, whoa, oh, I remember, wow, ta-da!
I
Just all
saw
of a
my
sudden.
Yeah, we never
I
really got enough time to spend with Cosmo without memory to really get to know him to get to know what his character is like without memory. Like, he barely even does anything when he's, assisting Barrock.
my other thing
Which
with
I think is
that,
a
He
missed
cuts his cock off.
opportunity.
That's it.
my other thing
Yeah,
with
he
that
just-
was, oh shoot, what was I going to say? My other thing with that was, oh God, brain, please, like, he remembers everything by seeing a photo, like seeing a statue of his dad that I'm pretty sure he hasn't seen since he was like, what, 5?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I am 21, and my mom died 3 years ago, and even I sometimes struggle to remember things about my mom. Like, fuck you, you don't remember your dad.
Yeah, and that's not how
later.
amnesia works. And that is not how amnesia works, and I know because I've met a real amnestic, and
Well, okay.
she even says, like, you can show me a photo of something that I do not remember, and I will never remember it.
Well, no. Okay, so that is the thing, though, with the same thing of, like, believing it as fiction. Like, where you did that to make your ships thrive, they do that to make the plot thrive. The problem is there's a way to do that where you see something and you remember it to make it, like, interesting. And this one, it was like, okay, well, that's his dad. Of course he's going to remember because plot convenience. But, it's a thing. And
Yeah, it was a plot device. But as I said before, I like, with the Lost Turnabout with Phoenix having amnesia, which is the most convoluted thing ever. And you haven't seen this one, but be prepared for it.
Oh, I know.
But
It's
there
K,
is
isn't it?
Yeah, it's K. But which, it also has the same effect as her. Like, she just sees, like, her book, and all of a sudden she remembers. She gets all of her memory back. Yeah, very convenient.
Whatever.
But at least it's not a plot device. It's something that happens after the case is solved. But unlike with that one, I think this one could be fixed. And the reason I say
I think all amnesia can be fixed. I just think that, if you rely on amnesia as a crutch, it's not a good story anyways.
Yeah, I do agree. But what I mean is that with Phoenix's amnesia, it's like, okay, it's already done, it's already out there. I mean, unless you retell the entire case of the Lost Turnabout, there's not really a way you could really fix it. Like, because they already, said how he got amnesia and what, he was thinking during that time and everything. And it's like, okay, it's already out and done. And the same was said with Kay. However, with Kazuma, we don't really know, because we're only given very brief moments with him. We don't really know enough about the story behind that to really know for sure of what's going on. So I would say that if, say, they made a third game and maybe placed a DLC case where it takes place during the time when, Kazuma was amnestic at the time, they could actually make it to where, they could show his struggles as an amnestic, show some of the symptoms and side effects, some of the challenges he goes through, as an amnestic, and how he's able to overcome those things. Because, and I say that because, believe it or not, it isn't just my original story, but I'm also currently working on fantasy. I need to get back on that, called Turnabout Rivals, which is the sequel to Turnabout Enemies, where, Edgeworth ends up, hurting himself. I won't say what because it's, spoilers, but he ends up having amnesia in the process. And I began thinking back on it, and, even though I got inspiration from, Amnestic K and everything, I also realized that unlike what they did with Phoenix, I did feel that Edgeworth was still, having lost his memories, was still trying to relearn everything. He was learning how to investigate. He was relearning how to do basic things. It was under supervision. So it felt like, okay, it makes sense. He's not just doing it on his own. He's like with Phoenix. He has someone helping him, someone guiding him. But he is relearning everything that he's forgotten. And it isn't just a simple, oh, I see pictures of my dad and suddenly my memories are back. How he gets his memories back is that he has to wait for his brain to heal in the hospital. So basically he goes to sleep, and then when he wakes up, he remembers everything. And even then, he still has like some head injury side effects.
Yeah, that sounds more believable.
I began thinking that that something kind of like that could be incorporated in Kazuma, maybe in a DLC case that takes place before the events of the Harebrained case, where when he meets, Ryunosuke, you could even, maybe add something like what happened after, Ryunosuke left the office. Like, did Kazuma ever have any side effects? Did he ever have side effects of confusion? Did he ever have frequent headaches? Did he have seizures?
You don't usually get into those deep things
in face.
Yeah, you don't usually get into the very medical issues in like that in Ace Attorney, but I do believe that could work.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you could, even after this, after this, if you were to make a third case and maybe add a DLC case that took place in a flashback or something.
Oh, yeah.
You could actually make that amnesia work. It would still be a plot device, but kind of like with the Apollo Justice game, by itself, it definitely was clumsy, and it definitely, by itself, it probably wouldn't work, and it puts Phoenix out of character and everything. But when you include, other games that actually has more context to what Phoenix was doing during the first 7 years, it ultimately did explain how Phoenix went from, Phoenix right from the end of the trilogy to Hobo Phoenix.
Yeah, it did. It helped at least.
It helped. Context. I mean, it doesn't say that the games were any good. But I think there could have been a better way they could have done that at Dual Destinies without making it be just an okay game. It could still be a great game. You could still make Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice great games while also adding in extra context to kind of fix Hobo Phoenix. I think the first thing they could have done is maybe kept Phoenix Hobo Phoenix. I don't know.
Yep. That's all I would have done to fix it. Keep him the way that he is. Keep him an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, he keeps some of the facial expressions, but it's not quite the same, you could say.
Yeah. And as I said, the worst of Kazuma does take place in Barrock's case. It does take place during that, and I'm not going to justify any of the bullshit he does. That being said, nope. I don't know. Maybe it's because maybe it's because I'm attracted to him. Maybe it's because I see his flaws as being wow, I just like him more. But I don't know. I kind of like the fact that he can be an absolute douchebag. I don't know why.
It's more interesting than his original self, I guess. He was
I guess
strong. He was brave and noble before. He was brave and noble before. Now he's brave, noble, and bad. Does that sound right? Uh-huh.
Yeah. I guess it just gives him something more interesting. He is still the same Kazuma as from the first game, but now we know oh, he can be an absolute asshole. And I began seeing this more when I looked back at the escapades, because Like, if you ever watch The Escapades, literally during the first episode of The Escapades, he threatens to punch Ryunosuke for losing his student badge. I kid you not.
Ouch.
Yeah! Like, literally, he raises his fist at Ryunosuke for losing his student badge and not remembering the last 4 digits of his student badge.
Ouch. That sounds like something Edgeworth might say jokingly. I will punch you in the face for this.
Oh, are we talking about
the really I don't think he would punch.
Are we talking about the really shitty thing that Phoenix did to Apollo? Because, man...
No, we're talking about Kazuma. We're talking about what Kazuma did to Ryunosuke in The Escapades. Kazuma literally raised his fist at Ryunosuke for losing his student badge.
Oh. Well, you know, I've never played The Escapades, and that's a very, big overreaction on Kazuma's part.
Yeah, but, that's... And you don't have... And you're not playing The Escapades, you're actually watching them. They're video clips.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But, that's what I was saying. Like, when I saw the worst of Kazuma from that, that actually made me look back at The Escapades, and I'm like, oh, wow, Ryunosuke really painted that man with rose-colored glasses big time, because the fact that Kazuma raised his fist at his best friend for losing his student badge, and Ryunosuke just, shrugged his shoulders oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, Ryunosuke... You know, this is the reason why I ship you two along with Kazuma and Barrick.
Yikes.
Yeah. Can I say one thing I'd like to say about Kazuma?
Yeah.
A lot of differences between him and me, I've not had any of my friends or family member be killed or murdered, and just live to wonder why the heck did that happen, and what do I do about that? But I have one thing I relate to him with is being so angry at someone that, I'm not saying I would kill them myself, but if something happened to them, I'd be like, well, whatever,
If you
and I don't actually mean that, but
got run over by a truck, I guess that I'd be sad, but then again, it wouldn't suck.
Yeah, something like that. Anger is what I'm talking about. Just anger towards somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to tell you what makes me angry at people. It's just dumb most of the time.
Oh,
but
trust me, I almost got expelled over anger. I get you.
Shoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't. Funny thing is, I haven't physically hurt anybody since elementary school. I learned the hard way. You're not supposed to do that, but.
I was taught that, and it didn't stop me. So
Yeah. So I haven't hurt anybody, but boy, if I wanted to.
Dude,
I could get into detail, but it'd probably be too graphic even for this channel. But
no, dude. You want graphic? I'll tell you. There have been multiple times where I've gotten into a conversation with someone, and I've gotten so mad that I have pictured me grabbing them and ramming their head into a wall.
Yeah.
I don't...
Same, stuff like that. But the reason I bring this up, that's why I respect what Kazuma's decision was at the end. He took his sword. Karama said, I am no longer worthy to wield this. I need to work on getting this beast inside me tamed, get this anger under control, and hopefully by the next time I see my friend and the sword, I'll be better prepared. I'll be more mature. I'll be
mature.
More in metaphor, in a sense, be better in control. That's something I've been working on for years and years, and I'm still working on it. I am 32. Sometimes feel like I'm 13. My attitude. So it's a beast you have to fight over and over. Is what I'm saying. So I relate to him there.
I get you. And my thing personally is when I first saw that and he was like, I'm not worthy to wield it. I was like, okay, that's cheesy. And as a person who has had severe, I guess I can tell the story because I've told it a million times. In 7th grade, I was a victim of reactive bullying, which, if you don't know, is you're bullied so much that you do something that is constitution of bullying. So people would piss me off to the point where I would, like, shove them, and then they would be able to play the victim. That's essentially what that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so end of the year, you know, I'm talking with a person, and this woman, I'm just gonna use this word, this cunt, she's like, oh, I'm just gonna disagree with her to piss her off, and it was the end of the year, I was at the end of my rope, finally, I had enough, so I grabbed the arm of hers that was close, and I twisted it so hard behind her back. I didn't hear it, apparently other people heard a pop. I did not break it. I know I didn't break it, but I did do damage, and I got sent to the office, and I was told to apologize. I didn't. And I also, I was supposed to be expelled. I wasn't. So, you know, it was one of those things of, like, when I came back to get my yearbook signed by my friends, everyone asked why was I expelled? And I said, no, my mom just took me out of school because I wasn't learning anything. And everyone, from that year on, nobody fucked with me because clearly I wasn't going to get in trouble. And so but I learned from a different thing to control my anger, because I was stereotyped as the angry girl for the rest of grade school. Like, it didn't matter how friendly, how docile I became. They were like, oh, she's the angry one. She's always angry about everything. And that came to a head in the 12th grade when my teacher for drama, there was the musical we were doing is Freaky Friday, and there was this gym teacher, and her whole thing is being really angry. And I remember explicitly telling my teacher, I said, hey, I don't care. You can put me in the background and I don't have a single speaking role. I don't give a shit. Just don't make me the angry gym teacher. And guess what I found out I got less than 2 days later?
Angry gym teacher.
Yep. I was so angry about that. Like, I was frustrated because I was trying so hard to not be the angry girl anymore that when that day, I just stormed home. I was so angry. I was crying. Like, So,
yeah, go ahead.
I understand for a different reason why you would want to control the anger, but at the same time, I understand why he reacted to Gregson the way that he did, wanting to kill him, because I have felt that 100 times.
Yeah.
Let me just say, can I just say one thing? Hang on. Just going to say, I didn't know you back then, but I'd say you've changed a lot.
Thank you.
So good for you. Good for you.
I think you did know me just barely in the middle of grade 7, but like it was right at the end, so it doesn't even matter.
Okay.
I think we can go to like the relationship between Kazuma and Barok, because I believe that both their character developments like coincide with each other, much like, you know, Kazuma and is with Ryunosuke. And because, like, one thing about Barok's character development is that I don't believe that it would exist if Kazuma was not his student. And the reason I say this is because, you know, what he learned from Ryunosuke is that, okay, there are some, that not all, that there are Japanese people I can trust. However, he didn't really get, and while he did trust, he learned to trust Ryunosuke, you know, by the end of the first game. He never truly, like, had a close relationship with him like he did with Kazuma. Kazuma wasn't just someone that he took in under his wing. That was his student. That was his responsibility. That was someone who was the son of the man that he once admired, that he felt like betrayed his trust. This was someone who he likely had to take care of most of the time because he was so amnestic and handicapped. So, and like, this is the guy he shared his offices with. This was someone who considered him like his lord. A relationship between a samurai and his lord, if you do your research, is so close that it's considered to be closer than the samurai's relationship with his spouse.
Yeah.
That's saying something. So
I just realized something interesting. But go ahead.
But, you know, so when you really consider that, okay, so Barrock starts building up this relationship with his student, who is handicapped. He is learning prosecution. He has no memories. He has built up a relationship with this man for 3 months. And he's grown close with him to the point that where when he is alone with Ryunosuke and in private and expressing some stuff about, the Japanese man that betrayed his trust and killed his brother and was the professor, who else was with him at that day besides Ryunosuke and Susato? It was the master apprentice. It was his disciple. This already tells me that he has a massive amount of trust with this man, which is interesting, because there was someone because how many times do we end up being more open to someone who doesn't even say anything back to us, that is mute, that doesn't say anything? So it's like he considers Kazuma someone that he trusts a lot and is much more open to, because of the fact he's mute, because of the fact that he's a much more handicapped, because he's under his responsibility, someone who he's fought alongside with when a mob was out to attack him, someone who would be willing to give his life for him, and if anything happened to Barrock under his watch, he likely commits seppuku. Or whatever you call it.
Seppuku, I think.
Yeah, seppuku. Yeah.
Can I say something real quick interesting that I realized? Kazuma and Barrock both deal with anger issues brought on by very similar by one of their loved ones dying, and and oddly enough, those two incidents are very much related. They're the same incident. How crazy is that?
Yeah. I remember trying to explain to Clover when she was doing that live stream, but I just didn't know how to at the time because it was going off so fast and everything. But when Kazuma has all of these 3 months with Barrock. He suddenly gets his memories back. He spends 9 days still with Barrock after he gets his memories back. It's not like he left. He never went to see Ryunosuke or anything. He was still with Barrock during those 9 days. Until Barrock was arrested and everything. But he gets back after his little beef with Gregson. He goes to a boarding house. He stays. He tries to cool off. He's like, oh my goodness, I almost killed a man, yada, yada, yada. And then he gets back, realizes that Gregson is dead, and guess who gets arrested for that murder? It is Barrock. And so with this, he looks over, he uses the train ride, on his way back to London to look over the case, see if there's anything he can investigate. And I can imagine, and there's a lot of conflict at this time. This was someone he admired, someone that he looked to much in the same way that Barrock looked to his father, which is someone that he admired, someone that he looked up to, that he wanted to be like, someone that he would give his life for, and that if anything happened to Barrock under his watch, that he would likely be willing to kill himself for. This was someone that he cared about and was very close to. So finding out that there is a possibility that he really is the Reaper, that he killed so many people, and likely was the reason that his father was put to death. I mean, I cannot imagine the amount of turmoil and conflicted things he was thinking. And something that...
disillusionment.
And something that, I was once told, I don't remember who it was. I think it was Cinema Therapy on YouTube. But, he once said that hate cannot exist without love. And as conflicting as it is, as much of an oxymoron as it sounds. Like, let's think about it for a moment. What kind of people do we hate? Most likely the people that we hate the most are either those that hurt our loved ones, or there are those that once were our loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah, that
And
reminds me of...
with that...
Go ahead.
And with that, everything starts making sense. Why does Kazuma hate Barok at this point? Why is he willing to prosecute him? Why is he so willing to go after him and get on his vengeance boner on him? That's because Barok wasn't just somebody who he believes truly hurt somebody that he cared about, but that he was somebody that he truly cared about. It's a double whammy here. Much like in the same way that it is for Barok, where he hates Genshin because Genshin killed his brother, someone that he loved, and the fact that he once was somebody that he truly cared about.
Yeah. I was going to say real quick, reminds me of something I heard somebody say, if you love someone, you're going to hate anything or anyone that harms them. That's part of loving them, at least caring about them.
Yeah, and if you love somebody and they betray you or hurt you in the worst possible way, whether it be through abuse, manipulation, or the likes, you're likely going to hate them more than if it were a stranger doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's a different kind of hurt.
It's a different kind of hurt. And I think that recognizing this also shows a lot of the character development that both Barok and Kazuma have with each other. Because Kazuma is someone that Barok truly cares about, that Barok feels responsible for, I believe, like, this is what makes him start losing any of the xenophobia that he once had. Because now he's seeing how his xenophobia is affecting his student. That his hatred towards the Japanese race is actually doing a lot of hurt to someone that is under his care.
And that he's come to love and trust.
So someone that he was likely very open to. Like now, this man who knows that, Barok hates Japanese men, now he has every reason to believe that surely this man truly did frame my father for mass murders and did put him in the gallows.
If I may interject,
Go ahead.
I didn't have anything to put into this conversation up until now because if I'm being frank, I could not give less of a shit of the relationship between Barok and Kazuma.
That's fine.
But you brought up something that really rubbed me the wrong way, and it was that the people that you hate usually either hurt someone you love or used to be someone you love. And I know you probably didn't mean it to sound like this, but you made it sound like an absolute. And I want to say that objectively that's not true because...
Oh, I wasn't meaning absolute.
No, I know, but I want to make that clear because I think Kazuma and Barok are complicated in the same way that my relationship with my mother is complicated. Because, hey man, I have trauma, I have anxiety and depression and a lot of problems that I definitely can pinpoint to the fact that my mom verbally abused me, my brother, and my dad pretty much every single night. And I'm not afraid to, I'm not scared to say that. A lot of people keep saying, you shouldn't badmouth your mom because she's not here to defend herself. And I'm like, bitch, I couldn't badmouth my mom when she was around to defend herself. Wow, we just dropped a lot of frames. Anyways, my main thing is that my mom was abusive to the point where, as a teenager, I hated her. But looking back, I don't hate her. I dislike her, but I don't hate... I love her because she's my mom and she took care of me and raised me. But I hate her because she was supposed to not, make me feel like I was worthless for not wanting to pursue water polo when I wasn't having fun anymore,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I wasn't saying that it's absolute. I was just saying that to kind of help understand what Kazuma's feelings towards Barok and Barok's feelings towards Kazuma at the moment that they quote unquote hated each other. That it's a little bit more complicated and complex than just simply that than just simply that, oh well, Kazuma is prosecuting Barok to try to kill him. And I'm like, that's not really the case. I don't believe that he truly was prosecuting Barok just to get him the death sentence, for goodness sakes alive. He literally demanded Ryunosuke to defend that man. I doubt he would demand Ryunosuke to defend his mentor if he had any intention on sending him to the gallows, so to speak. I believe that there were many reasons why he did. First off, he truly believed that this man, really did send his father to the gallows with the intention that he believed that this man hated his father, that this man killed Gregson and everything. He truly believed those things. He believed that this man needed to face justice. He needed to be in a actual court where he didn't just, go off free and, continued being the Reaper and all that stuff. He, and to the point where he was even willing to admit that, yeah, I also assaulted Gregson and assaulted Gregson. Here is my sword as proof, yada, yada, yada. He was willing to do that, to put his mentor to justice. At the same time, it also the fact that he demanded Ryunosuke to defend his mentor also tells me that even though he truly believed that Barok was, the reason that his father was put to death, that he was the reason that he murdered Gregson and all of that stuff, there was still a twinge of doubt. But the same thing as Barok had with Genshin, that he truly believed that Genshin was the one, was the professor, but the one single doubt he had was that Genshin had saved his life and was still wearing the ring, which ended up being falsified evidence in his brother's autopsy report to prove that Genshin was the one who killed him. And that could be reflected off of Kazuma, who I have no doubt had a small amount of doubt, had not that much of a doubt. It was a doubt so small that he probably didn't even know it existed. That he had a small amount of doubt that Barok was the Reaper and that he killed Gregson and all of that. There was still a small doubt, and he knew. And I believe the reason he demanded Ryunosuke to defend Barok, despite strongly believing that this man was responsible for all these murders and everything, was because he knew if there was anybody who could prove that he is wrong about what he strongly believed, it would be Ryunosuke, without a single doubt.
The great Ace Attorney himself.
If I may offer an alternative, I don't think it has to do with doubt. I think it has to do with being thorough.
Yeah, there's that too.
Oh yeah, I believe that too.
The thing with me is I don't think it's a doubt thing because, frankly, if he had doubt, there's nothing in me that makes me think he would not pursue that doubt himself rather than be like, oh yeah, I'll have him do it with me. I think it's more a thing of he knows that Ryunosuke wants to find the truth, and even if that means that Barok is guilty, he's gonna do it. So he wants this person who he knows will help find the truth, and that's it. I don't think it has anything to do with doubt or Barrack or any of that. It's just a thing of I want to make sure that this is done as thoroughly as possible.
Here's the thing, Kazuma didn't just demand Ryunosuke to, defend Barok, but, Kazuma was also going against Strongheart's orders, who wanted Kazuma to not only prosecute Barok, but he also wanted him to, he wanted to basically do things corruptly. He wanted him to, like, just basically throw Barrock completely under the wheels of the bus, or else just let him go free. Like, he wanted either one of those, and Cosimo wasn't complying to it. He was doing his own investigations. He was plowing his way through everything. In fact, like,
Again,
during that time, before, Strongheart became the judge, Gina went to Ryunosuke saying that nobody was listening to her. Like, she found, a notebook from, that little notebook thing from Gregson that she believes would really help as evidence for the case, that could really help, but nobody was listening to her. Nobody was allowing her to testify to what the notes said. The guy, and the man, the one who allowed her to give her testimony, the one who allowed her to present that notebook forward, was Cosima. Maybe how he did it was very clumsily. Even Barrock even called him out, saying that, "Hey, what you're doing is that, like, this girl isn't a detective. She's just reading notes. You're basically, setting everything up like a performance. And if you keep doing that, you're going to be basically your own Reaper of the Old Bailey." Like, he was even saying that. But that being said, the intentions of why Cosima had her step forward, come to the courtroom and testify, was something that was against what Strongheart was expecting out of him. And at the end of the day, I do believe that, yes, you're right, he was trying to be thorough. But I also believe he had a small amount of doubt. And because a lot of times, sometimes we're so convinced that, oh, this is true. Like, there is no way that anybody can do anything to change our minds. And yet, despite that, we tend to overlook our own doubts. Like, well, wait a second. We should instead of pursuing and just, like, going forward, sometimes we just need to stop and really think about it. It's like, wait a second. Like, there's actually some doubt I have. And I know that, and this was something even Barrock admitted, that he truly believed that, Genshin was the one who killed his brother, that he was the professor, but the one single doubt that he always questioned, that always bothered him, was the fact that Genshin saved his life. That was what bothered him. It didn't keep him from, believing that Genshin was the one who killed his brother, and it didn't keep him from prosecuting or truly believe and being gung-ho that, oh, Genshin is the professor. He was the one who killed all these people. He was the one who did this. He was the one who did that. It didn't prevent him from truly believing that, but sometimes we can overlook our own doubts. Like, even the small, especially if they're as small as that. And I believe that with Cosima, it seems to be the same thing. Like, that, yes, you see that he's very convinced just based on like how passionate he is when he's prosecuting, the way he's talking to the way he's talking to Ryunosuke. But you also see kind of like conflicting expressions in him, which is something I noticed with Miles Edgeworth in the first game, when he went at the end of Turnabout Sisters, when he's prosecuting against Phoenix, and he is talking to Phoenix alone in the gallery. He basically is telling Phoenix, like, no matter what you do, you're going to be guilty of all charges and everything. And while he's saying that, you notice that he doesn't act as smug as he does when he's, prosecuting. He's not smiling. He's not
not as happy about it.
He's not. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't look happy about it. He's just like, he has his head down. He's kind of like frowning a little bit. He doesn't seem like he really believes anything that he's saying. And then when he tells Phoenix that it doesn't matter because he has to prove, that what matters is a guilty verdict. You see him that cold, hard glaring, and then Phoenix says, Edgeworth, you've changed. And when he says that, Edgeworth goes from glaring to just looking lost in his expression. Like he just looks like he doesn't even know anymore. And I kind of noticed that with Kazuma, that while he's talking to Ryunosuke about how he's convinced, at time, when he says it, he will, be glaring and everything. He will be smug and everything. But then when he talks about why he's convinced, but when he's talking about his past and his father and everything, you see that there's some sort of I don't know, he just doesn't seem very sure about what he's saying. He's kind of he's conflicted between I'm convinced, kind of he's conflicted about what he's about his conversation with Ryunosuke about the trial and everything with Barrock. And you can kind of see that there is something conflicting in him, and that's what is convincing me that he might have a small bit of doubt that Barrock might be guilty. He's still mostly convinced he is, but there's still that bit of doubt inside of him.
Yeah,
it's very possible.
Yeah. I was actually going to mention a little while ago, we're a little bit over time, which I'm fine with. I just wanted to let you know.
We should wrap up.
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to say. My favorite thing about these podcasts so far is just how deep we get into stuff that's already deep, and then sometimes we find ways to make it deeper. Deepness is what I'm all about, y'all.
Yeah.
Especially about a game like this that's just got so much to talk about. And that relates to a lot of real life stuff too. So thanks a bunch for that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, and I would agree that there is a lot of depth with Kazuma and Barrock. I think that there's a lot of depth in their character development and everything. And I don't think that character development between the two of them, especially with Barrock, going from being the xenophobic asshole to just being a changed man who's learned the error of his ways, wouldn't exist without Kazuma. And kind of the same with Kazuma, after his court case against Barrock, I don't believe that he would have come to the conclusion that he needs to better himself, that he's willing to take accountability, that he's willing, it isn't just about him passing his sword to Ryunosuke until he's ready. It's also about him realizing, I made a mistake. I really fucked up. And I can't just, return back to the man I once was. I can't just play innocent. I need to, I need to take steps to better myself. And I think most of what he's doing, and it isn't just him passing the sword. He's also continuing his lessons under Barrock, and not just because he wants to be, because he doesn't just want to be a strong prosecutor. He truly believes that if there's anyone who could help him fight off his demons, to learn to control himself, it would be Barrock.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Barrock, he also has problems with his anger. In fact, if you see one of the official arts, there's a picture of Barrock, back when he was a young prosecutor and he's in court, and then you see him literally that scar in the middle of his forehead. That was self-inflicted.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, it reminded me, this is something I don't have, but I have a brother that has something like that, where he would get so angry, he would literally bite his tongue to the point it hurt.
So are we done?
Sorry. I'm actually having a chat with somebody right now,
No problem.
so that's why I wasn't talking. I had my mic muted.
We had to We had to leave about 20 minutes ago anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a bunch again.
Yeah. I guess
fun.
I just wanted to close it up. I just wanted to give, the closing that, Kazuma, went from being this cool, great guy that stands for justice and wanting to change the legal system to being, a complete asshole with grudges and anger problems. But I think that having the epilogue where he takes accountability for his actions and he's willing to stay in London and learn under the man that he practically prosecuted. I think that's a really great way to, kind of close it up with his character and kind of be like, you know what? Yeah, he was pretty much a jackass during that trial, but he's taking accountability. He's not a bad character. He might have had maybe 3.5 cases, and that's it. He had probably half the cases that a typical prosecutor usually has, but I think it was okay. And I think that there's more you could do with Kazuma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd love to see more of it. He's admittedly not my favorite character, but I do like him a lot.
Yeah, I would like to see a Barrock and Kazuma spinoff. Personally, I would love to see a spinoff like that. That would be awesome.
So I do Twitch. So trying to do my outro. I do Twitch Mondays, Thursdays, usually RPG Maker. If I can get something else to run, I might do something else. Probably maybe Mother 3. Come hang out. I'll probably do another stream after this one in about 30 minutes, just a small casual one to hang out. You can catch the other two at Ask Ace Attorney and whatever.
Hello. On my blog, I'm nobody you know.
Yeah.
The letter U.
So yeah, we'll see you. What would be the next one? The first Thursday of July is, if the calendar would open, because my computer is, but it's the 6th. Okay, so I'll probably see you on July 6th, maybe?
Hopefully. I'll try not to get sick again.
If not, we'll let y'all know about the reschedule or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah,
see you.
Go for 1, 2, 3, or 4 of July because, Canada Day and 4th of July.
Oh, God, we're not doing Canada Day. We're not doing Canada Day not because it's Canada Day, but because it's my aunt's birthday.
Oh. I think July 3rd is also my grandma's birthday, too, so...
I mean, we may as well do it after all the fireworks and crap,
Yeah. Because...
Yeah, next stream should be the 6th of July. If not, we'll let y'all know on the server. Come check us out. I'm nobodyyouknow.tumblr.com, twitch.tv/theeviebreeder, aka where you are right now. AskAceAttorney.tumblr.com. That's where you can catch us. I'll catch y'all in half an hour for my thing. Bye.
Bye. Look forward to it.